I just moved to a new studio in Prague and immediately ran into a problem. This is a top floor apartment and a lot of walls are slanted. And if you place a table against it with the printer on top, it wastes a huge amount of space. And then it struck me, what if we don't need a table at all? Well, you can place the printers on the floor, but I don't think that that's a nice solution. I want a practical solution that fits the rustic vibe of this place. And I think that turning a 3D printer into a piece of furniture is the perfect solution here. I got the inspiration from the Prusa Signature Oak, and I'm going to focus on the form factor. So, I won't be making the printer out of wood. I will keep the original printer as is. And I think that this makes total sense for people with limited space, people who don't want a workshop vibe in their living room, or maybe even for store owners who just want to showcase 3D printing. And I think that we can make the overall 3D printing experience less intrusive. And when you can store your spools or build plates, so it's just one standalone entity that looks nice and can be placed wherever you want. That's the plan. This is the printer I'm gonna use, the Prusa Core 1. Yes, the company making this printer is why I moved to Prague, but I will tell a bit more about that later in the video. This mod can basically be done with any 3D printer, but the nice thing about the Core 1 is that Prusa recently published the files, the CAD files, and you can get them from Printables under the Open Community license. This means that you can download the CAD files and design perfectly fitting mods for it. I already designed some stuff for it. So I already designed feet that can be placed on the bottom here. But before mounting that, I will wait for this printer to finish, because I also want to show you something cool with that print, and then we can start mounting this thing together. And there are some cool design features that I want to show that I think you would find interesting. At some point I set a pause for inserting M8 nuts and continued to print after I pressed them in. A bit later it prompted me to do the same for the screws, and this is a pretty tight fit, so I had to tap them in, but it fitted and could continue to print.
Okay, the first printer is basically finished, but since I'm turning this into a full print farm with a more homey feel, I need to replicate this multiple times. And that's where the sponsor of this video comes in, Odoo. Odoo is an all-in-one management software that helps you run your entire business on one platform, with over 45 apps for things like invoicing, accounting, project management, inventory, website creation, and more. For this project, I've been using Odoo's project app to stay organized while turning these 3D printers into pieces of furniture. Instead of a typical to-do list, I created a project and structured the whole build into custom phases like research, design, prototyping, and scaling. Each task lives inside its phase, so I can always see where everything belongs. Inside each task, I break things down into smaller steps, add notes, and attach files, like the original Prusa design files or updated parts as I iterate. And since I'm building this for multiple printers, I can easily duplicate tasks and adapt them for each version without starting from scratch every time. It's a simple way to keep a complex project structured, especially when there are lots of iterations. Different views make it easy to see my project from every angle, including Kanban, Gantt, and List. Odoo grows with you, so you can add more apps as your needs change. The first app is free for life, including unlimited hosting and support, so if you want to check it out, there's the link in the description.
I printed a lot more. The printers were running through the night, and it was a really cool sight in the dark to see all of these printers running here. And I ended up with these parts and a bit more. One very special version, but I will show that in the end of this video. And also some other special version, and I'm currently printing the last parts for that. So the original design had these round feet, which looks pretty sleek, but this floor is kind of bouncy, so I could see this thing pushing into the floor. It's not that clear on camera, and I also think that it could leave a dent onto this quite soft wooden floor. So I decided to make a sort of ball joint like this, so it has a much larger surface, so it at least doesn't damage the floor. I'm not sure if it will reduce any vibrations, but at least it looks kind of cool. And that also enables some other fun possibilities that I will have in store for this special version. So, and before I'm going to put the rest of the printers together, I have a small announcement, because I've got new merch. This design is based off of an old video where I made a 3D printer with a drill plate as a base, and I was able to turn the build plate temperature to 200 degrees. Well, technically I hit 250 degrees off camera because I wanted to set the nozzle temperature, and accidentally, and when you put a Benchy on it, it will start looking like this. Some of you already know from my last video that I like to print things hot, and I will do that more often here, so that's what's representing this shirt. So if you're interested, you can find a link in the description. Let's build the rest.
It was a beautiful day in Prague, and I took the tram to another part of town. Before I could finalize the rest of the printers, I had to go to a hardware store. I also made a version for the Core 1L, which is a bigger printer, and I figured that bigger diameter rods would make sense for those. If you want to replicate this mod and buy your own rods, bring a caliper with you and measure them, because the diameter of some rods is just too small. I put the Core 1Ls together, which was basically the same process as the regular Core 1. Remember that I mentioned that those ball joints enable some other fun possibilities? Well, This is what you get when you take feet for your printer a bit too literally. I also made hands. I found out that I could just import an STL file in Onshape and add parametric features to it. I know that this is pretty cursed, but somehow this looks actually pretty sick. Before I'm going to show you the end result, let's address the elephant in the room. I can imagine that a lot of you are wondering if this mod has any negative impact on printing performance. Initially, the design was a lot more flimsy. It looked kind of slick, the corner pieces were much smaller, but during print you could really see the printer rocking back and forth. And even worse, if you try to open or close the door, you could really feel the printer moving. Honestly, for quite some time I was thinking that this might be not a good idea. So I had to make these corner pieces a lot stronger. I made them bigger, I added these braces, and initially I was bummed out because it didn't look as sleek. But it turned out that they not only look pretty good, this also enables you to store build plates against them. I still wanted to find out if this mod has any negative impact. So I came up with these. This is a resonance test, and the goal here is that it moves the tool back and forth at different lengths. So at some point it will find a resonance frequency. And I also found a printing profile online which pushes these machines to the max. It's called Bonkers, and it should be possible to print a sub 10-minute Benchy. And with this test and under these extreme circumstances, I tested this on both the machine standing on the floor and a machine equipped with this mod in both X and Y. And I expected more violence in Y because it has to move this whole gantry back and forth. And it was pretty violent, and you could really see the printer moving back and forth quite a lot. But still, even under these extreme circumstances, the printer stayed in place. It didn't walk off, living its own life. And also, you don't really see a difference between a printer with or without the mod. In my book, I'm calling this a success. I'm very happy that I applied this mod to almost all of my printers here. I'm able to place them all around in the studio, and it honestly looks pretty epic. Entering the studio, you're greeted by this piece of art. It's a little cursed, but somehow fits perfectly here. I think I found the perfect place for my projects. It even makes me feel more like an artist, which is exactly what I've been looking for. Coming here was a big step, and honestly, it wouldn't have happened without Prusa. They invited me to move to Prague and start working more closely together, and after thinking about it for a long time, I said yes. The projects won't change, proper printing stays the same. I'll keep experimenting, building strange things and seeing how far I can push 3D printing. They're supporting me by covering my costs here and giving me access to their machines. And I'll be featuring their printers more in my projects. This also opens up the possibility for bigger projects and collaborations I wouldn't have had access to before. And one of the first places this led to is Gallery Rodolfinum. Gallery Rodolfinum is an exhibition space for international contemporary art in Prague, and I helped them setting up a Core 1 and applied my mod to it. The gallery has provided an important platform for showing the best contemporary art, and now the Core 1 with my mod is the first thing you will see when entering the building. This is a great honor, and I'm very glad to be part of it. They will use the printer for printing miniature versions of the pieces that are exhibited. In this case, the so-called walkers that are shown in the exhibition called Beyond the City of Time by Sahesh Rahal. And if you're visiting, you can also check this contraption I made. If you end up in Prague, definitely check this out. It's even free to enter.